Story 1. My husband had diarrhea so bad that it went everywhere in our bathroom, and I accidentally sat in it. I cleaned myself in the bathroom, then jumped in the shower to wash off his feces while he was still sick. I began vomiting in the shower from the awful smell of seafood-related food poisoning. He says his idea of spending time together is waiting in a drive-through line, and while we were there, I sneezed a large amount of nasal mucus onto my shirt and panicked as I tried to hide it and find a tissue. Story 2. I fell down some steps and broke both of my arms. My husband wiped my bottom and helped me shower and wash my hair for weeks. For better or worse, that was definitely filed under worse. Story 3. Man, all of these sound like medical conditions and other crazy things. One time my girlfriend said she wanted to see me but did not want to talk to anyone after a rough day at work. She came to my house and sat in my bed with me while I played video games until we both fell asleep. She did not say a word other than hey when she arrived, and all right, bed. Love you. Story 4. I grew up with my grandparents because both my parents had to work various jobs, so my grandfather was my world. I took care of him during his last 5 years when he became bedridden. I visited him as often as I could. He lived with an elderly aunt who fed him but needed me to bathe him and eventually change his diapers. Early in our relationship, my wife would come over sometimes. One time I arrived at his house and found his refrigerator full and him watching television while eating a bowl of ice cream. My wife had left a few hours before me without telling me. 6 months later, I proposed. Story 5. My boyfriend made me go to the gynecologist to talk about getting an ablation after watching me struggle with crippling pain and heavy bleeding every month for years. He said not to worry about money or anything else, only about solving my problem. 2 months later, I received a call from my surgeon. I had missed the fact that the surgical team performed a biopsy when they removed my polyps, and the biopsy found uterine cancer. Had I been stubborn and continued to ignore my miserable periods for years, who knows what could have happened? No one expects uterine cancer in someone under 30. He held me while I cried, took me to every appointment, and helped me recover after my hysterectomy. He is my rock. Story 6. Why am I reading this? I do not even have a girlfriend. Edit. Thank you so much for the support. This is actually my first time posting, and I am very happy with the community here. Story 7. In the last few years before my mother passed away, she suffered from severe diarrhea and had lost most of her mobility. It was not uncommon for her to be unable to get out of bed, much less reach the bathroom. Whenever this happened, my father would get up, help her to the bathroom and clean her, then go back to the bedroom, strip the sheets from the bed, put them in the wash and finish by putting fresh, clean sheets on. He was not in much better health himself, but he never complained. Story 8. My boyfriend texted me one day while he was at the gym saying he thought his rectum had prolapsed. I had no idea how it happened, but I started searching online for what we needed to do. I read that if it wasn't serious, you could push it back in before going to a doctor instead of heading to the emergency room. So what did I do? I put on gloves, lubricated my finger, and knelt in front of him while he lay on the bed as I attempted to push part of his rectum back into his anus. It turned out to be a giant hemorrhoid when he went to the doctor the next day. I think that was a moment in our relationship when we established complete comfort with each other. If your partner can try to push part of a rectal prolapse back into place, then nothing is really too disgusting to discuss. Story 9. My husband and I often end up showering together. One night, as he was about to get in, he said, "Never mind. I will clean up, get some food ready for you, and let you shave your asshole in peace." Story 10. My wife and I came to understand that we can sleep apart for the sake of comfort and better rest without it being an expression of emotional distance. Story 11. I have a now 12-year-old daughter who is not biologically his, but she calls him dad and he always refers to her as his daughter. When she was about 10, he had been moved in for about 6 months and we were settling into life as a family. I had a couple of brief conversations with her, so she knew what was happening, but she was unsure what to do. He handed her some toilet paper, showed her the basic tip of placing it in her underwear, and took her to the store. He helped her choose pads, detoured to the ice cream, chocolate, chips, and bakery aisles, and picked up junior-strength ibuprofen just in case. They settled on the sofa. He explained the basics of how to use the pads, showed her a short online video, made a hot water bottle for her, and put her dirty clothes on to soak. They snuggled, she talked about it, and they looked up answers together when he did not know them. I came home to find them napping on the sofa, the room a cheerful mess like after a slumber party, and a happy child. It was probably one of the moments I have loved him the most. Story 12. My husband's family lived across the country and used to send us boxes of their almost new, good quality clothes that they no longer wore. The men's clothes were great for my husband and sons, but the women's clothes were always a bit too small because I had gained a lot of weight since they last saw me. My husband always felt so bad for me. Once, he lifted a pair of pants out of a box and said happily, "These will fit you. They're huge." I still remember the look of horror on his face when he realized what he had said, but I loved that he was happy I was getting a new pair of pants. Story 13. My significant other vomited in the parking lot on our first date, before we even got into the restaurant. I thought she was having second thoughts because she had just come out of a horrible relationship, but she was on her period and it was severe enough to make her vomit. We are married now. Story 14. My first child was stillborn. I held my wife while we both cried as she vomited on me and bled on the bathroom floor. It is a memory that will stay with me forever. Story 15. I had a pilonidal cyst, an ingrown hair cyst, surgically removed from the top of my buttock crease. My girlfriend helped me pack new gauze into the 1.5-inch hole so it could heal properly. I bent over the bed while she removed the surgical gauze. She did her best, but I ended up pulling it out myself. In the bathroom, leaving blood on the floor and on myself. After I cleaned up, she came back to help me insert fresh gauze. We joked that it was my double butthole. The surgeon pulled out a hairball the size of a quarter. When I told my girlfriend about the comments, she said it really was traumatic for everyone involved. Story 16. During her first pregnancy, my wife vomited brown, congealed blood every night for her entire second trimester. We saw multiple doctors and made several trips to the emergency room but never learned the cause. The vomiting began after midnight each night and sometimes continued sporadically for 8 hours. It never occurred during the daytime. One night she thought she was finally improving and went to sleep early. Around 1 a.m. she jolted awake, instantly waking me, and tried to run to the bathroom to vomit. In her panic, she forgot the sick bucket on the bedside table, slipped and fell on her side. Nothing hit her abdomen, and vomited blood on the carpet. She immediately began to sob. I carefully helped her to the bathroom, held her hair back while she finished vomiting, cleaned her face and gave her water to rinse her mouth. I carried her back to bed and then cleaned the carpet. We were still in college. Those 3 months of misery strengthened our relationship, and nothing serious has come between us since. One other effect of constantly seeing my wife sick was that we became completely comfortable with each other's bodily functions. There is none of that, "I don't want my husband to know I poop" nonsense. Story 17. I nursed my late husband through squamous cell carcinoma and thyroid cancer. He was diagnosed at the end of November, entered hospice at home at the end of February, and died on March 21st. I took time off work most days to be with him, feed him, and give him his medications. I had to convince him that he would not become addicted to morphine because he was in hospice, and he finally started taking it when I offered it. My mother, a registered nurse and cancer research nurse for 52 years, could not believe how much I stepped up and took over my husband's care. He was the love of my life. All I could do for him was make him comfortable, so that was my priority. I did everything in my power to make him comfortable through the end of that fucking disease. He died at home and we were able to say I love you, thank you, and goodbye. I still miss him every day, even 4 years later. Story 18. My wife passes out frequently because of a medical condition. Can happen at almost any time. I have become very good at recognizing how she feels and can tell when she is about to go before she does, and I have learned to catch her. It may look unromantic, and sometimes it is, but her knowing I am there and my recognizing her signs mean a lot to us. This post received a lot of attention overnight. Thank you for the kind words. I did not realize how common this is. To answer common questions, we do not currently have a service dog. We have a golden doodle that failed service dog school. Her condition is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. She usually only passes out while standing. She has episodes during which she may pass out several times a day and require hospitalization. Other times she can go weeks or months without passing out. She is a nurse. Story 19. To everyone who shared their stories, thank you. I expected to read funny stories, but instead I read deeply touching expressions of love. Story 20. My wife was very sick, barely able to stand. She crawled to the toilet, rolling and groaning from stomach pain. She had never been able to make herself vomit on command. I got her over the toilet, had her take a few deep breaths, and after warning and with her permission put my fingers down her throat. She vomited onto my hand and the toilet. It was thick and sticky, but she felt much better afterward. Story 21. When my husband and I first married, I had surgery to remove a tumor from my chest. The surgical site became infected, and for about 3 months he had to pack it with gauze so it could heal from the inside out. It was so painful I could not do it myself. He was always amazing about changing the dressings, and I really think it cemented our us versus the world mentality. We just celebrated our 11th anniversary and are going strong. Story 22. I donated a kidney to him. When his wound would not close 4 weeks later, I packed and dressed it twice a day while trying not to make it obvious that the smell was making me gag. You do what you have to do. One other thing. Unfortunately, donating a kidney is a treatment and not a cure. We were told the average living kidney donation lasts for 15 years. We are also closely following the kidney project at the University of California, San Francisco, which is developing an artificial kidney about the size of a soda can that can be implanted in a person. It will help many people. Story 23. We definitely pranked each other thoroughly. I spent a little more than a year randomly sending him emails from a man named Nolan. Nolan worked in customer service, and I invented the most ridiculous case for him to solve about a balloon business. Once in a while, during a slow time at my job, Nolan would email him. The last message was Nolan asking my husband to join him in a doomsday bunker. I finally told him the truth on our anniversary, April 1st. He got me back at Christmas. He anonymously sent me a very low-rent Chevy Chase coloring book. I greatly dislike Chevy Chase. He enjoyed my plotting revenge against friends and even encouraged me. He finally admitted the truth on New Year's Eve. I plan to retaliate in the near future. Story 24. My husband was the lone pallbearer at our newborn son's funeral. I carried him for nearly his whole life. My husband laid him to his final rest. Story 25. My wife was battling cancer and couldn't poop from all the medication she was given, so I had to give her a suppository. Once it took effect, I stayed in the bathroom to watch her because she thought she might pass out. True love. Story 26. I'm prone to developing cysts. They mostly just remain and sometimes go away on their own, but occasionally one becomes infected. I had one such cyst on the back of my neck a few years ago. It was extremely painful, and I was in agony. One day it burst open on its own. I won't go into detail, but it was really disgusting. My husband is very squeamish about these kinds of things, but without hesitation he lovingly removed the infectious material, cleaned out the wound, and applied antibiotic cream. He checked and cleaned the wound twice a day until it healed and applied clean bandages as needed. I don't even mind the scar it left because it reminds me of his tender loving care, even though I am certain it grossed him out. Story 27. Our first child was 8 weeks premature because I developed preeclampsia and needed an emergency cesarean section. I was extremely disoriented from all the drugs, magnesium sulfate, anesthesia, and oxycodone. When I was finally able to get out of bed and shower, he helped my crying, hormonal, leaking body into the shower chair, helped me take a much-needed shower, dried me off, and put on clean pajamas and very large pads. Back in my wheelchair, I promptly vomited everything that had been pumped into me during the 24 hours after my surgery. He turned me around, wheeled me back inside, and started over without even a sigh. Postscript. He loves that story and practically struts whenever I tell it. I told him how popular he was with this story on Reddit, and he wants you to know he even tried to catch the vomit in his hands and ended up catching my undigested pain pills. My first Reddit gold and silver, thank you. When I tell him this, he will want a steak for dinner. For anyone curious, the baby weighed 2.5 pounds at birth and spent 5 weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit. She is now 8, happy, and healthy. I went on to have another baby 2 years later who was full-term and drama-free. Now I must go make them both eggs for breakfast because they say they are starving. Story 28. I had a severe attack of gastroenteritis. It was coming out of both ends. I was lying in bed when I suddenly had to vomit, so I tried to run to the bathroom. I failed and proceeded to vomit and poop all over the floor. He cleaned me, the floor, and the bathroom. He tucked me back into bed with some water, gave me a kiss, and stroked my greasy, tangled hair until I fell asleep. Most unromantic scenario ever, but he was there to help me through it despite how gross it was. When I tried to apologize for making him do all that, he said, "It's fine, sweetie. I love you. And I know that if the roles were reversed, you'd do the same. And I would too." Story 29. 4 months into dating my now husband, he took me to my colonoscopy because I had no family in town and it made sense for him to go with me. Afterward, I lay in his bed while he tried to get me to pass gas to relieve my pain. He even passed gas himself to try to make me feel better. A few hours after resting, I had to go to the obstetrician-gynecologist to have an intrauterine device placed. So he took care of me all day because I was sore in my nether regions. To top it off, it was his birthday. It was the single most selfless thing anyone had ever done for me. Story 30. She was so sick that she was lying on the floor, had soiled herself, and was vomiting. I carried her to the bathroom, bathed her, and put her to bed. Then I cleaned up the mess. Story 31. When your wife has a difficult pregnancy, she may need help with basic personal care that is usually private. Story 32. Despite her insect phobia, when she removed a maggot that had burrowed under my skin, I knew she was a keeper. Story 33. The second night we spent together, he sharked at 3 a.m. while we were fast asleep. Nothing like changing the sheets. We're married now. Story 34. When I was in labor with our third baby, I had to poop. So badly. The nurses wanted to check me to make sure the baby wasn't crowning. I knew it was legitimately just needing to poop. It wasn't my first rodeo. The nurse told me I could go on the condition that my husband accompany me in case the baby really did try to make an appearance. My husband sat in the hospital bathroom with me while I pooped and held my hand through contractions. I felt closer to him after that than I ever had before. It was an unbelievably intense 15 minutes. And I had never been so vulnerable in front of him. We look back now and laugh about it. We have been married almost 7 years. My potty time didn't scare him off. Story 35. After dating for a year, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He proposed and married me knowing I was dying. We signed a prenuptial agreement so he would not receive anything after I am gone. He wanted to free me from the worries and struggles of being alone and sick with 3 young children. He drives 90 minutes each way to work to keep my health insurance for cancer treatment. He accompanies me to appointments, checks on me throughout the day, and has been my rock through 20 months of cancer. I was given 4 to 6 months, but because of him, I have lived my best life since the diagnosis. Thank you for the awards and for appreciating our love story. I will share this with my husband. I am deeply grateful for your kindness and support. Story 36. I got too drunk one night and vomited shortly after arriving home with my boyfriend. I did not make it to the toilet in time and vomited in the hallway. My boyfriend cleaned that up while I continued vomiting in the toilet. He undressed me, filled the bathtub with about 2 inches of warm water, and helped me lie down. Then he washed my hair because it had vomit in it. I was crying and apologizing the whole time, and he continued to take care of me. He said he was going to get me clean clothes, and I sobbed, "Don't leave me, I'm going to drown." He dried me off, carried me to our bedroom, dressed me, and got me water and crackers. We had sex later when I felt better. Story 37. I have had a tough 2 weeks that raised my anxiety, which caused me to become depressed and withdraw into myself. My husband recognizes this pattern. I try to shut everything out until I explode or have a nervous breakdown. Over the last 2 weeks, he left me alone, stepped in to help more with the kids, and redirected them so they would leave me alone. Now that I am more or less better, the things that were stressing me out are resolving and I did not have a nervous breakdown. I cuddled with him last night and thanked him for giving me space because he knew I needed it. He also let me wax his taint once. Edited to add. Oh gosh. Thank you for the gold, kind person. I am glad I could make you laugh. The actual story of the taint waxing is in my comment history, but you have been warned. Story 38. As someone with a chronic health condition, these comments give me hope for a future relationship. Story 39. In June 2017, I had an accident that resulted in my left index finger being amputated at the first knuckle and limited use of my left thumb. It was a hard time for me and for my girlfriend. I was unemployed for 4 months. I had just bought a brand new car, and we had brought home a new kitten the week before. When it happened, she worked through her anxiety and depression to be my rock in my time of need. She helped me more than I will ever be able to thank her for, and she still does. I am constantly reminded of the struggles we went through, and I am thankful for everything she has done for me, even if she does not realize just how much. If she finds this, I love you, Tony. Story 40. I had a terrible stomach bug. I dry heaved so hard I fainted and fell out of bed. When my husband came upstairs to see what the noise was, he found me vomiting into a trash can and having had a bowel accident. He gathered the soiled sheets, helped me to the bathroom to clean up, and put fresh sheets on the bed. He then took care of the soiled sheets and never mentioned it again. Story 41. We both got vicious food poisoning from Chipotle. We had diarrhea and vomited for about 10 hours straight with only one bathroom. It was a nightmare. I won't go into details because it was gross, but the fact we still wanted to have sex once we recovered was a really good sign. Story 42. I got blackout drunk and puked all over my then boyfriend, now husband, in the bedroom and bathroom. I woke up wearing fresh clothes. He explained everything that had happened after I begged him to tell me. Apparently, I tried to exorcise demons out of him, and projectile vomited everywhere. He managed to get me to drink some water, bathe me, and get to bed, then deep clean the bedroom and bathroom. I was so embarrassed afterward. The only memory I have of that night is his cat looking at me with concern and judgment. Edit. Wow, this is my top comment. Edit 2. Here is the cat photo. Story 43. When I was first diagnosed with Crohn's disease, my significant other had to carry me to the toilet. I would scream and cry from the pain during a bowel movement while he knelt in front of me and held me. Story 44. She died 10 years ago. I have not dated since. While we were married, she vomited almost every day. She had severe morning sickness that lasted all day during both pregnancies, 9 months each. Later, she had cancer and underwent chemotherapy, which caused more vomiting. I always held her hair. Story 45. I have bipolar disorder and have had 2 episodes of psychotic mania. He dealt with them like a champ, not just enduring them but getting me safely to the hospital and being completely understanding and loving. That would really scare a lot of people, if not cause them to leave entirely. It is a sign of my great trust in him that, in the midst of being out of my mind with grandiose delusions, paranoia, and other symptoms, I heard him say, "Sweetheart, we have to go to the hospital now." And I believed him and went along with it. Thank you for the award and the lovely comments. Mental illness is serious, but everyone deserves a partner who is truly loving, accepting, and supportive. I am very lucky to have one. Story 46. In the first months of dating, during one of our first intimate encounters, my partner paused to point out a strange hard spot on one of my testicles. At the time, it was a bit embarrassing, but when I was diagnosed with cancer a few weeks later, I was really grateful. We have been together for 8 years now. Edit. I am alive, 7 years cancer-free, thankful for the gold and silver, and I want to direct anyone concerned about their own or their partner's testicles to a very helpful comment by user Zanium. Story 47. My wife likes squeezing blackheads from my back. At first glance, it does not look like I have any, and I cannot see them in a mirror. To her, it is a mission. Story 48. We had just moved in together in 2015. That summer, some weird tummy bug was going around, and I got it. We were watching a movie when, Unexpectedly, my stomach gave one big churn, and before I could get up to run to the bathroom, I vomited and defecated myself at the same time. My stomach cramps were so unbearable. I could hardly lift my head, but he carried me through the mess, helped me shower, cleaned everything up, and nursed me back to health. Every time I needed to go to the bathroom, he carried me, rubbed my back, and held out a bucket. I was mortified, but to him it was normal, and he knew I would do the same for him. Story 49. We spend most of our time at home doing our own things. We have 2 televisions in our living room. I'll often be playing video games or watching podcasts while she watches Netflix or YouTube. We also spend a lot of time in separate study rooms. Mine is for making music, and hers is for working on her career. I believe respecting each other's need to spend time alone, rather than doing everything together every day, is the single biggest reason we've lasted. We just celebrated our 13th anniversary. Story 50. He stayed with me through my laryngeal cancer, the permanent loss of my voice, several surgeries, several rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, other tumors, and the colossal medical debt I incurred from my bills. That last consequence hurt him at work because his employer moved him to less important projects, deeming him a security risk due to more than $350,000 of debt. The employer has a policy intended to prevent employees with large debts from having access to secrets they might sell. Story 51. My partner and I went on a trip in 2017 that ended in Washington, District of Columbia. On the last day of our vacation, he got food poisoning, but we did not realize it until after we had walked the 2 miles from the train back to the hotel. By then I was limping from bad blisters and just wanted to sit down and elevate my feet. He sat on the bed to rest and fell asleep before taking his shoes off, and then I noticed he had a very high fever. For a while I kept a cold cloth on his face and made him drink water, but his fever got so high that he started to hallucinate, and at one point he did not know who I was. The ice machine was broken and the hotel manager would not help. But the security guard offered to watch our room so my partner would not wander off if I went to buy ice and medicine. I put my shoes back on and limped down the hill to the nearest pharmacy. I recalled thinking that I must really love this man. If it were just me, I would have suffered. Thankfully, I found a small tapas place I had not noticed earlier, and they gave me some ice. When I took my shoes off, my feet were bleeding. I spent the night nursing my partner through the worst case of food poisoning I have ever seen and managed to get us to the airport on time the next day. It was our worst vacation ever, and we are pretty sure we should never go back there. But at least it was memorable. Story 52. My girlfriend at the time and I drove about 90 miles to my parents' home after having Christmas dinner at her parents' so we could see a play with the whole family the next day. We arrived okay and were getting ready for bed. Everyone was asleep when I began feeling ill. I vomited in the toilet once or twice, then had non-stop diarrhea. I sat there vomiting into a trash can while dealing with severe stomach cramps. My girlfriend did her best to take care of me, but the illness hit her too. Once I stopped, she began to evacuate as well as I waited for the next wave. There was only one toilet. After taking turns a couple of times, we realized this would not end soon and that a moment would come when we both had to go at the same time. Neither of us had the strength to make it from the bed to the toilet quickly enough. We lay in bed, racked with pain, feeling like something was trying to claw its way out of us. I told her that if we both needed the toilet at once, I would squat in the bathtub so she could use the toilet. She told me she loved me, and we managed to survive the worst night I have ever experienced together. We are now married. Story 53. My husband fished our miscarried fetus out of the toilet with a slotted spoon, placed it in a Ziploc bag, and then put it into a zippered tote before we went to the doctor. At the time, I was in shock and did not want to look at the fetus. Story 54. I recently had a second heart catheterization to check my heart for blockages. Thankfully, there were none. This time, they used my femoral artery in my groin, and I had to remain on bed rest for about 4 hours after the procedure. I had not eaten all day in preparation for the surgery, so when I got up I was famished. The nurse brought my hospital dinner, but I could not sit upright to feed myself. My wife of 10 years, who has been a solid rock for me through this ordeal, was glad to have the opportunity to feed me. I am only 32 years old, so being in this situation and unable to feed myself was humbling. She happily cut my roast beef and potatoes and fed me one bite at a time. You could tell that she loved being able to serve me in this way. It was not a burden or a chore. She did not make a humiliating joke. She simply fed me carefully and attended to my needs. She felt rather useless because my fear and anxiety were pent up inside, and she appreciated having a way to show that she was there for me during a weak and frightening moment. She is much better than I deserve, and I am deeply in love with her. We have a silly, playful relationship, and it would have been fine if she had made a joke while feeding me. She is my best friend. Story 55. A lot of comments about poop. Here is another. He was lying on his back on the floor. I stood over him and pulled my pants down to pretend to fart. I was incredibly sick and didn't even feel the squirt of watery stool I released on his belly. The shocked look on his face was the only sign that something was wrong. As soon as I realized, I freaked out and practically tore his shirt off over his head to clean it up. He was only concerned about me being okay. He never shamed me or made fun of me. It immediately became a joke between us, and when it became clear I needed surgery, I felt it provided some excuse. Now it's 7 years later, and we still laugh when he says matter-of-factly, "You pooped on me?" And I reply in a whining voice, "I was sick. I needed surgery." Story 56. I had extreme morning sickness and vomited a few times in the hallway on the way to the toilet. He had to clean it up every time and also did all the housework for 2 months while I was ill with severe morning sickness, because people kept asking why I did not have a bucket. This happened before we knew I had an extreme case. This is our first child. It was around the start of week 5 of my pregnancy. After 2 or 3 times, and because it happened on a weekend when he was home, he had to clean my vomit from the hallway and I did get a bucket. By that time I was triggered by every sight and smell. Vomiting into a bucket and then seeing or smelling it made me vomit more. I flushed immediately after vomiting. Since my husband would be at work during the day, I could not bear to clean the bucket each time because I could not stand the smell, and I could not let it sit near me until he came home. My sense of smell then was like a bloodhound's. I ended up staying close to the toilet, either in the bedroom 2 meters away or in the bathroom. Story 57. We have been married 13 years and together for 17. Early in our marriage, we agreed to keep petty grievances between the two of us. That has made a huge difference. I never worry that my husband will tell his friends about something embarrassing I once did and then forget it while they remember, or that he will call his mother if we have a disagreement. He never has to worry that I will complain to my friends about him not putting the toilet seat down. We respect each other too much for that. If you pay attention, it is astonishing how much people badmouth their spouses over trivial things. None of us are perfect, and I would hate to be vilified by the person who loves me most over a harmless mistake. Story 58. My girlfriend was just leaving when my roommate came home. I walked her to her car and came back inside. My roommate said, "Dude, did you wreck the toilet? It's clogged badly." I instantly responded, "Totally did. My bad. I'll take care of it." I hadn't used the bathroom all day. It was my girlfriend who had. I had a brief moment to think it through and took the fall, then had to go buy a plunger. It is a sign of love in our relationship. Story 59. I had methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and my wound had to be packed with silver nitrate and wound tape to ensure it did not close over before healing. That meant my relatively new boyfriend twice daily put me through agonizing pain, first pulling blood, and pus-soaked packing material out of a hole in my arm and then forcefully pushing clean material back in. I knew then he was the one. We have been happily married for over 10 years now. Story 60. My husband had a thrombosed hemorrhoid that required an incision. After the procedure, I checked his anal area every day to ensure it was healing properly, shrinking, and free of infection. If that isn't love, I don't know what is. Edit. Wow, this received a lot of attention. Thank you for the gold. I sympathize with everyone who suffers from hemorrhoids. It's awful. I'm glad we have a forum where we can be open. Story 61. I scratched an itch on my foot using his heel callus. He looked at me, asked if I had really just done that, and we cackled until tears streamed down our faces. Love, man. Story 62. I had pneumonia that went undiagnosed for a week longer than it should have because of my previous healthcare providers. When I finally started taking medication, I was in pretty bad condition. My partner stayed at my house the entire time I was sick. He woke me to drink water and to eat meals he cooked and brought to my room. Midway through my course of 2 antibiotics, I developed very bad diarrhea. One afternoon, I ran to the bathroom from my bedroom and had an accident with the door open because I could not wait. It was uncontrollable for about 10 minutes, and he heard and smelled everything from the living room. I heard him laughing the entire time and saying, "Jesus Christ." He then helped me back to my room, gave me water, and tucked me in. That is when I knew he was the one. Story 63. I was having a panic attack and he was in the bathroom. He called me in because he could hear me sobbing. I went in thinking he was brushing his teeth, and the man pulled me down onto his lap while he was on the toilet and held me as I was sobbing, hyperventilating, and laughing at the absurdity. We are now engaged. Edited to add, "Thank you, kind stranger, for the gift. I am glad so many people are touched by our weirdness." Laughing out loud. Anxiety is a terrible, awful, no good, very bad thing, and I hope each and every one of you never have to deal with it again. Story 64. When I was very pregnant, my fiancé shaved my legs and cut my toenails for me. Story 65. I was throwing up in front of him for the first time. He held my hair back with one hand while eating a Big Mac with the other, showing no hesitation. He is a rugby player with very large hands, which makes eating a burger easier. Thanks for the silver and gold. Story 66. We were grinding with our clothes on in bed, running our hands over each other. I put my hand over her throat, which triggered a panic attack for some reason. I panicked and did the only thing I could think of, the very thing I had been desperately trying not to do. So I blurted distraction and farted loudly. She stopped panicking and fell off the bed laughing. That was 5 years ago. We've been married a little over 3 years now. Story 67. I was in a car crash and broke my back. I was not paralyzed, but I was pretty messed up. I found being washed by the nurses really humiliating, so she offered to clean me instead. We had only been together 2 months at that point. It was such a simple gesture that, at the time, meant the world. Story 68. I fainted in the shower, hit my head, and was knocked unconscious. Because I was naked, my husband dressed me, called an ambulance, and stayed with me until the paramedics arrived. Story 69. Trigger warning. Miscarriage. It was a horrible time for both of us. We were 14 weeks pregnant and learned that our baby had not made it past 10 weeks. Our ultrasound technician said we needed to see a doctor immediately. We both looked at each other and knew, but we were still hoping for the best. That, unfortunately, did not happen. It was our first pregnancy and we were both over the moon excited. The sobbing began almost immediately after the doctor explained that it was probably a miscarriage. The first few days after were absolute hell, especially after trying for so long. She eventually needed a dilation and curettage after an emergency room visit, and I saw things I cannot unsee. Looking back now, I am glad I did because it showed how amazingly strong she can be. That time has since become known as the big sad in our lives. We both understand now that it was not meant to be, and going through it together made us closer than I could have ever imagined. It may sound silly, but hearing other family members and friends go through similar experiences truly helped the healing process. The story has a happy ending. We are now 35 weeks pregnant and so excited. Story 70. 6 months into a new relationship, he and I took a road trip to meet my parents. On the way down, we stopped at AJ's restaurant in Mountain Home, Idaho. He loaded up on their fried chicken. It was pretty good food for the price, and we returned to our Campgrounds of America cabin full and sleepy after a long day of driving. It did not take long for the gas to set in. If you have never smelled or accidentally inhaled a fart that smells and tastes exactly like the food that caused it, you will not understand the pain of being stuck in a tiny cabin thick with the odor of fried chicken. If you have, you know what I mean. It was awful. The worst of it was that I had stepped away to brush my teeth in the bathroom across the lot. When I came back, the room was already gassed to the point that my eyes were watering. When I lifted the blankets to climb into bed, I was hit with a waft of hot, fried chicken smell. I practically fell off the mattress onto the floor, gagging and dry heaving, while he laughed so hard he could not control himself. We celebrated 10 years together in November. Story 71. I posted this elsewhere. One morning I sat in a cold bathtub crying as my husband chased down and dressed our toddlers. I had recently been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and was not used to needing help. I listened as my husband fed, dressed, and loaded the babies into the car while my bath water cooled. Then he came into the bathroom to say goodbye. I hunched over and sobbed because I did not want to admit I could not get out of the tub by myself, yet I could not bring myself to ask for help. I cried that we were too young to be dealing with this and that he was too young to have to help his wife out of bathtubs. He held my hand, looked me in the eyes and said, "I am lucky to spend the rest of my life helping you out of the bathtub. I am honored to be the one to hold you while you walk. I will be glad to carry you across the house. I swear I will be there for the rest of our lives." Sometimes we fight because he tries to help too much and I become resentful and frustrated that I cannot do things on my own. But I always know help is there if I need it. Many things are difficult right now, but I am grateful to have a life partner who truly is in this for life. Story 72. Early in my relationship with my now wife, we were taking our first shower together, nothing sexual, just showering. It was probably the third or fourth time we had seen each other completely naked. She was washing my back and then moved down to my buttocks. It was a hot, steamy shower with no exhaust fan in her apartment bathroom, the door closed, and the shower curtain drawn. As she crouched to wash me, I accidentally let out a horribly foul-smelling fart, like rotten eggs and a dead animal. There was complete silence. Then the smell hit her. She quickly stood, stuck her head out from under the curtain, coughed and said, "I can taste it." I was stunned into silence. "What do you even say?" She left the bathroom. I stood there alone, breathing that awful odor, unsure what to do. I decided to apologize. I got out of the shower and walked into her bedroom. She was on the bed, completely naked, tears in her eyes and red-faced from laughing so hard. At that moment I realized I would probably marry her. She faced a horrible situation and chose to laugh instead of getting angry. Now far worse things have come from both of us since then, and we laugh about them together. Story 73. My girlfriend once vomited on me while we were having sex. She wasn't feeling well but still wanted to be intimate. While she was on top, she became queasy and vomited on my chest. I was so shocked I didn't know how to react and struggled not to vomit myself. She was extremely embarrassed, quickly got off, put on a robe, and ran to the bathroom. I cleaned myself and checked on her. Physically, she felt better after vomiting, but she was emotionally shaken. It took time to convince her I still loved and found her attractive. I was more worried about her than disgusted. And that is love. Story 74. My husband had to remove stool from my rectum because I was severely constipated due to painkillers after surgery. I cared for his urine collection bottles after his surgeries. Story 75. My husband held a bedpan under my buttocks while I was in labor to help me use the bathroom because I refused to have a nurse hold it. Story 76. My husband helped me on and off the toilet when I was recovering from having our son. At one point I was able to go on my own but could not quite make it back to bed. So he lifted me off the toilet, pulled my adult diaper up and carried me back to bed. When he tucked me in, he told me I make adult diapers look beautiful. It meant more to me than any other time he had said it, laughing out loud. Stealth typo fix. Thank you for the gold. My husband and I are reading the comments and feeling the solidarity and support. He really is a great husband, and we are excited to do it all again in March for baby number 2. Story 77. In 2014, we had just moved in together, and I had the first of 3 transient ischemic attacks, episodes that mimic strokes. I kept calling him by his parents' cat's name and vomiting on him. Hospital staff would not allow him into my room because we were not married. He waited for my parents to arrive, calmly explained the situation to them, and comforted us while I had tests. My father still says that was the moment he knew I would be safe with him. We have been married for almost 2 years now. Story 78. A few weeks after we were married, my husband and I were lying in bed, relaxing, when he suddenly picked my wedgie. We both froze, realized what he had done, and burst out laughing. We had always been comfortable with each other, but that was something new. Story 79. I aimed at him when he was too drunk to do it himself. He told me several times to stop squeezing. I was laughing out loud. Story 80. There's a lot of poop and health-related comments here, so I will share a different kind of experience. I suffer from depression. One time I fell back into an episode and sat on our bed crying. My husband saw me, took my hands, helped me stand, and began slow dancing with me. There was no music, no television, just us dancing. He kissed me several times and kept giving me the biggest grin. I could not help but smile through my tears. He never dances and does not like dancing, so this was a very sweet moment for me. Story 81. My girlfriend had just moved to a new city to live with me. Although we had known each other a long time, everything was new to her while I continued my usual routine. My coworkers and I met my girlfriend for lunch, and things were going well until I trusted a fart. I panicked because I did not know how she would react to the news that I had soiled myself. I made a lame excuse to go home before returning to work, but she sensed something was wrong. I arrived home, threw away the underwear, and laundered the soiled jeans. Crisis averted, or so I thought. After much texting and pressure, I admitted to my girlfriend that I had had an accident and that the jeans were in the wash. I expected to come home to an empty house. Instead, I came home to nicely folded jeans with a post-it note that read "Short Pants." We have been married for almost 9 years. Story 82. I had a contentious conversation with a fellow board member of a charity. The next day, I learned my father was out of options for cancer treatment, and my mother-in-law called to cry about her dog with heart problems. She wanted me to help her with something. That weekend, a garage sale or something similar. My husband called her back and told her in no uncertain terms that I had too much going on, could not help her, and that her dog dying and my father dying were not the same. I could not have loved him more at that moment. Story 83. My mom was having some monetary problems and other family issues weighing on her. She was really down, so we went over for a quick visit and so she could cut my girlfriend's hair. She mentioned that her vacuum cleaner had broken and that she needed the money for other things. My girlfriend and I exchanged a look and nodded. I ordered a vacuum cleaner from Amazon on my phone. When we brought it to her, she cried and was so happy. That nonverbal moment was another proof of how well we fit together and how much we love and trust each other. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.